What are you doing today?
I'm heading to Boardroom Media to watch a documentary video.
Wow, interesting.
Let's go, Boardroom Media!
Imagine waking up in 2006. You step into a Wall Street boardroom. Every executive around the table reaches into their pocket at the exact same moment. Not to pull out an iPhone. Not a Samsung. Not even a Nokia. Every single one of them places the same device on the table. A BlackBerry. It wasn't just a phone. It was power. If you carried one, people assumed you were important. CEOs carried it. Politicians carried it. Hollywood executives carried it. Even the President of the United States refused to give his up. BlackBerry wasn't competing to become the best smartphone. It already was. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Then one man walked onto a stage wearing a black turtleneck, pulled a piece of glass out of his pocket. And within just a few years, the most powerful phone company in the business world became almost irrelevant. This is the story of how BlackBerry went from ruling the world to losing everything. Long before anyone had heard the words App Store or touchscreen smartphone, two engineering students from Canada were building something very different. Their names were Mike Lazaridis and Douglas Fregin. In 1984 they founded a small company called Research in Motion, better known today as RIM. At first, nobody paid much attention to them. They built wireless technology for businesses, helping companies send information more efficiently. It wasn't glamorous. But it taught them something incredibly valuable. The future wasn't just about phones. It was about staying connected. Throughout the 1990s, the internet was changing the world. Email was transforming offices. Yet there was still one major problem. You could only receive your emails while sitting in front of your computer. Leave your office, and communication stopped. Mike Lazaridis imagined a world where people could receive messages instantly, no matter where they were. It sounded impossible. Until RIM built exactly that. In 1999,
It was more than just a piece of technology. A persistent, blinking reminder that someone, somewhere, needed you.
It couldn't take amazing photos. Most people wouldn't even call it a phone. But it could do something revolutionary. It pushed your emails directly to your pocket. The moment someone sent you a message, your device vibrated instantly. Today, that sounds completely normal. Back then, it felt like science fiction. People became addicted. Lawyers loved it. Bankers loved it. Governments loved it. Large corporations loved it. Instead of waiting until they returned to the office, they were always connected. Then came the name. BlackBerry. By the early 2000s, BlackBerry had become more than technology. It became status. Owning one told the world something about you. You were successful, busy, important, professional. Its physical keyboard became legendary. People could type incredibly fast without even looking. The company also built something competitors couldn't easily match: security. Every message was encrypted. Businesses trusted BlackBerry with confidential information. Governments trusted it with national security. When security mattered, there was only one choice: BlackBerry. By 2007, the company controlled almost half of the American smartphone market. Almost 50%. One out of every two smartphones sold belonged to BlackBerry. Executives believed they had already figured out the future. And that's exactly what made them vulnerable. Because while BlackBerry celebrated dominating the business world, Someone else was quietly preparing to redefine what a phone could become.
Yet.
The date was January 9, 2007. Inside the Moscone Center in San Francisco, hundreds of journalists squeezed into their seats, cameras pointed toward a dark stage. Apple was about to announce something new. Then Steve Jobs walked onto the stage wearing his signature black turtleneck, blue jeans, and sneakers. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. For most people watching, it sounded like classic Steve Jobs confidence. For BlackBerry executives watching from Canada, it sounded ridiculous. Apple had never built a phone. BlackBerry owned the business market. The iPhone looked beautiful. But beauty didn't win corporate contracts. Or so they thought. Steve Jobs reached into his pocket and pulled out a device unlike anything people had seen before. There was no physical keyboard. No tiny buttons. No trackball. Just one large touchscreen covering almost the entire front. To BlackBerry, the device looked incomplete. Inside Research in Motion, executives questioned almost everything about Apple's design. How would people type without real keys? Business users needed speed. How could a phone survive all day with such a large display? From BlackBerry's perspective, the iPhone wasn't a threat. It was a toy. And that assumption would become one of the most expensive mistakes in technology history. BlackBerry wasn't blind. Its engineers understood touchscreens. Some had even experimented with similar ideas years earlier. But internally, management kept returning to one conclusion: our customers don't want that. They believed their users cared about three things: email, security, and the physical keyboard. Everything else was secondary. It was a logical conclusion. After all, those features had built a billion-dollar company. But markets don't always reward yesterday's strengths. Sometimes they reward tomorrow's possibilities. While BlackBerry focused on protecting its existing customers, Apple focused on creating entirely new ones. The iPhone wasn't trying to replace BlackBerry immediately. It was trying to redefine what people expected from a phone. Instead of asking, "How can we improve email?" Apple asked, "What if a phone became your camera, your music player, your web browser, your gaming console, and eventually your computer?" BlackBerry was improving the old world. Apple was inventing a new one. At first, BlackBerry's confidence seemed justified. The original iPhone had obvious weaknesses. Businesses still preferred BlackBerry. Sales continued. But they missed something far more dangerous. Consumers were changing. People who bought the iPhone weren't buying it because it typed emails faster. They bought it because using it felt magical. Pinching photos. Browsing the internet naturally. Watching videos. Touching the screen instead of pressing tiny buttons. The experience mattered. Then Apple made another move that completely changed the game. In 2008, it launched the App Store. At first glance, it didn't seem revolutionary. Just a place to download software. But Apple had quietly created something much bigger, an entire ecosystem. Thousands of developers suddenly began creating software exclusively for the iPhone. Games, navigation, banking, photography, social media. Every new app made the iPhone more valuable. And every new iPhone attracted more developers. It became a self-reinforcing cycle. Meanwhile, BlackBerry still believed email would remain the center of mobile computing. Then another giant entered the battle. Google launched Android. Unlike Apple's tightly controlled ecosystem, Android could be used by almost any manufacturer. Samsung, HTC, Motorola, LG, Sony. Suddenly, the smartphone revolution wasn't one company. It became an entire industry. Innovation accelerated. Every year, phones became faster. Screens became larger. Cameras improved dramatically. Consumers expected more every single year. BlackBerry couldn't keep up. Sales growth began slowing. Competitors were catching up. Investors started asking difficult questions. Instead of confidently leading the market, the company had begun reacting to it. And reacting is always slower than leading. Management rushed to develop touchscreen devices. But there was a problem. The company's software had been designed around physical keyboards. Simply removing the keys didn't create a great touchscreen experience. The result felt awkward. Neither as efficient as traditional BlackBerry devices, nor as intuitive as the iPhone. Customers noticed immediately. Reviews became increasingly critical. Developers preferred Apple. Consumers preferred Apple. Young professionals preferred Apple. Even many longtime BlackBerry users quietly started switching. Not because BlackBerry suddenly became terrible, but because everyone else was improving faster. The company still had billions of dollars. Still had talented engineers. Still had loyal customers. But something invisible had already happened. BlackBerry was no longer defining the future. It was chasing it. And once a technology company starts chasing, history shows it rarely catches up. By 2011, the numbers no longer lied. Apple's iPhone had become the phone people wanted. Android manufacturers, led by Samsung, were releasing faster, bigger, and more powerful devices every few months. BlackBerry knew it had a problem. Now it needed a miracle. Its first attempt to fight back came with the BlackBerry Storm. A touchscreen BlackBerry. Finally. But it wasn't ready. The touchscreen felt slow. Typing was frustrating. The software was buggy. Reviews were disappointing. Customers returned their phones in huge numbers. Instead of proving BlackBerry could compete, the Storm damaged its reputation. For years, BlackBerry had been known for reliability. Now people were questioning whether it still understood smartphones at all. Internally, pressure was becoming unbearable. Executives disagreed about the company's future. Should they keep focusing on business customers? Or become a consumer brand like Apple? Every decision seemed to come too late. While BlackBerry debated strategy, Apple and Android kept moving forward. The company's biggest weakness was no longer hardware. It was software. BlackBerry's operating system had been designed for a different era. An era of physical keyboards. An era before apps became the center of the smartphone experience. Developers increasingly ignored BlackBerry. Why build apps for a platform with shrinking users when millions of customers were waiting on iPhone and Android? Without developers, there were fewer apps. Without apps, there were fewer customers. Without customers, even more developers left. It became a vicious cycle. Determined to survive, BlackBerry made one final gamble. In 2013, it launched BlackBerry 10. This wasn't just another phone. It was an entirely new operating system. Billions of dollars had been invested. Executives believed this was the comeback. The phones looked modern. The software was much better. Many reviewers praised parts of the experience. But BlackBerry had waited too long. Consumers had already chosen their ecosystems. People didn't just own iPhones. They owned iPhone apps. They owned Android apps. Their photos. Their music. Their contacts. Their digital lives. Everything was already inside Apple's or Google's ecosystem. Switching wasn't just buying a new phone anymore. It meant leaving an entire digital world behind. BlackBerry wasn't competing against phones anymore. It was competing against ecosystems. Sales collapsed. Quarter after quarter. Loss after loss. Employees were laid off. Factories slowed. Confidence disappeared. Then came one of the saddest moments in technology history. In 2013, Research in Motion officially changed its corporate name. From Research in Motion to simply BlackBerry. The name had become more valuable than the company itself. But even that couldn't stop the decline. One by one, the phones disappeared. Carriers stopped promoting them. Retail stores reduced shelf space. Customers moved on. For an entire generation of smartphone users, BlackBerry became something they had only heard about. The device that once symbolized success had become history. Eventually, BlackBerry made the hardest decision imaginable. It stopped designing its own smartphones. The company licensed its brand to other manufacturers. Years later, even those efforts ended. The BlackBerry phone was officially gone. But here's the interesting part. BlackBerry didn't disappear. It transformed. Instead of building smartphones, the company focused on what it had always been good at: security. Today, BlackBerry develops cybersecurity software, enterprise solutions, and technology used in connected vehicles around the world. It's no longer the giant that once ruled the smartphone industry. But it survived. Just in a completely different form. So why did BlackBerry really lose? Was it because of the iPhone? Partly. Was it because of Android? Also yes. But those weren't the real reasons. BlackBerry lost because it misunderstood one simple truth. Customers don't care how successful you've been. They care about who solves tomorrow's problems. The company believed its keyboard was untouchable. Consumers wanted touchscreens. It believed email would remain the center of smartphones. Consumers wanted apps. It believed businesses would decide the future. Consumers decided instead. History has a habit of repeating itself. The companies that dominate one generation often assume they'll dominate the next. Some adapt. Others don't. BlackBerry became a warning to every technology company that followed. Even giants can fall. Even market leaders can become irrelevant. And in technology, success today is never a guarantee of success tomorrow. The next time you see an old BlackBerry sitting forgotten in a drawer, remember, you're not looking at just another phone. You're looking at a company that once controlled almost half of the smartphone market. A company trusted by presidents. Admired by CEOs. Loved by millions. A company that had everything. Until it believed it always would.